Hello, I'm Alice Oppen, Chair of Women's Plans Foundation. Women's Plans Symposium theme for September 22nd is Generating Change, with plays on the word generating intended. A generation ahead, will we be generating sustainably and renewably? At the Women's Club in Sydney, and possibly online, we'll present women leaders pioneering the kinds of change we need. Meet one of them now for a taste of what's ahead. Alison Crook AO is experienced company director, 17 boards, including IBM, Lend-Lease Corporate Financial Services, St. James Ethics Centre. Previous positions include State Librarian, Director General, State and Regional Development, New South Wales, and Deputy Vice Chancellor, Monash University. Welcome, Alison. It's extremely good of you to give your time today.
Thanks very much, Alice. It's a pleasure to be here.
Alison, when I first knew you as State Librarian, I thought that was the pinnacle, but it was only the beginning, wasn't it, of a business and corporate board career. What I wonder is, was it purpose-driven in one direction or a series of opportunities leading on?
In a sense, that's a difficult question to answer. I was brought up by my parents to think that if you had capabilities, then it was your responsibility to give back and to help others. So I always grew up wanting to, in a sense, change the world. At some point, I realized I was never going to change the world, but as I always said to other students at graduation ceremonies, you can change your bit that you're in for the better. So my view was I would go where I could make change and where I saw there was an opportunity to work with others to create change. And so when I was at the State Library, it really became, because of the work we were doing, I was constantly being approached. So then it was a case of looking at opportunities to see where I could contribute the best change, or the change that I thought was most needed. At that time, because my background was very much what we'd been doing with information technology at the library and showing other people that libraries were about information and making information readily accessible to all, that was an opportunity with state and regional development to try to get the state to do the right things as we led into the Olympics at that time, with information technology. And then really it went from there. When I got blocked, I've always had a view, you don't stick there and beat your head against a brick wall, which I've seen so many women doing as women tried to battle their way through all the blockages from the 70s on. You simply leave there and go to the next place and demonstrate what you can do. So then it's a case of, well, if there's another opportunity, you go to that one and show what you can do there. So that's really what it was about. But the purpose was to make organisations work more effectively within themselves for the people working in them, and in service to the public, to the greater good.
Wonderful,
so
thank you.
That's been the career path as such.
Right.
But it's been a very zigzag path.
How has it led to where you are now?
Well, where I am now is sitting in so-called retirement, I suppose, in the Northern Rivers. But it meant that my last role, we had already purchased a place in, my mother's family came from the Northern Rivers region. And I always used to come back here for holidays, so I loved it. And it was a natural place to choose somewhere to be. As Head of State and Regional Development, and also as State Librarian, I always loved visiting the regions, and I've always seen how important they are to Australia. And I've always thought that I'd like to work within the regions. So it was natural for me to come here. I've also seen that so much damage is done to the regions by having all of the money sucked out of them, instead of encouraging them to develop and own, and have communities in regions own what they do. So that it's always a sucking out and then saying, oh, now we have to give something back to help all these people who are in trouble, instead of saying, let's make it possible for these people to be strong communities in their own rights. So it's a different focus and it's one that says localisation makes us all stronger. So that's that's one of the real reasons why I'm here. The other, I think, is that with my background in creating change and with boards, when I saw that the big issue, and when you come to the country, I think the whole climate change issue hits you much more strongly than it does when you're sitting in the cities. It's much more obvious to everyone. So when you see that the big issue is climate change and what we need to do about reducing our carbon emissions and how we enable people to do that, then my skills could be put to use helping the people who had the knowledge in the area of energy to do something about energy and owning and controlling our own energy and reducing our carbon emissions at the same time. So it was about enabling people to take direct action on climate change as well as strengthening the regions. And that's what led me to where I am now, in a sense.
Strategy. There's increasing interest in installation of solar power now. How is Enova different? Well,
Enova is not a generator. Enova is a retailer. So there'd been a long interest in the Northern Rivers, a lot of before I came here, and certainly continuing when I first moved up here and was travelling backwards and forwards being a consultant. There was a long interest in owning community generation and making that shift to do something about climate change. But what everybody was beginning to realise was, and Hepburn Wind had started by that point, this is say 2000, and I think they got started in the 2010s or late 2006. But anyway, they had got going, but they struggled to find somebody to buy their energy and to make it then available. And people were realising it's all very well to set up community generation, but you have to have somebody to buy that generation, buy that energy that's generated and retail it. So the energy is sold into the grid, but you still have to have somebody to make that all happen. Yeah. So that's the story. And so the people up here raised, we demonstrated what we could do in relation to the Bentley coal seam gas fiasco, where people were trying to make, disrupt this beautiful, absolutely exquisite region and destroy the water supplies and damage the farming, and everybody got to go together and prevented that from happening. And we saw what we could do to stop the bad things from happening, but we knew that we needed to show what we could do and show that we didn't need gas. We could do our own generation, we could retail it to ourselves. So our vision has always been energy self-sufficiency, using solar and other renewable sources. And Enova then was needed because we needed a retailer. So the local shires, sustainability officers got together and got a grant from the New South Wales government to do a feasibility study on was it possible to have a retailer. So you've got generators, you've got the distribution networks, that's the poles and wires, and you've got the retailers who are the people who buy the energy and sell it to the public. And we needed to have a retailer, and that's quite a hard and risky bit to do. So they put out a tender, and 4 of us put up our hands and said and bid for it. And then we did the feasibility study. We did lots of community consultation, and we decided it would be possible. And we spent a year doing a business plan, a prospectus, which we had to lodge with ASIC. We raised 4 million in capital, most of it from this region, and went on from there. So that was 2015. We spent that year doing all of that work. We started the organisation up in 2016. So we're now turning 5 and moving into profitability.
Amazing, amazing.
So that's the story of Enova. And it's very different. There is only one community-owned renewable energy retailer.
So it's been an experiment that's worked.
Yes, but it's been a very, very trying and difficult experiment. So I can assure you it's the energy market, well, I'll talk more about that on the day, but it's very, very interesting.
Now, I noticed an Enova community and Enova energy community energy. I'm not saying that right, but there's an Enova community sitting within the energy company. What is that relationship?
Well, we set ourselves up from the outset as a social enterprise, which is the other thing that's unique about us. So we're not set up, we are set up to make profits, but only so as to return them to the communities that the money comes from.
Yeah.
So we have Enova Community Energy, which is owned by now 1,600 small shareholders. When we're in profit, 50% of profits go to Enova Community, which is our not-for-profit charitable registered charity. So it has DGR status. And through Enova Community, we do education, showing people how they can reduce their energy use. We do, and we do lots of projects. So we do things like getting solar onto community halls or schools or community groups, or the sort of thing that we've been doing is to put them on social housing. So we make it possible for people to reduce their energy bills if they can't afford to buy solar themselves. So it's all about ensuring, our vision is to ensure that communities as a whole can shift to renewables without leaving anyone behind. Because at the moment what we've got is the people who've got plenty of money can have solar on their rooftops, they can have batteries, they can be very nicely positioned, thank you very much. But the people who don't are usually renting, they can't get solar on their roofs, they wind up paying higher bills, and so it goes on. So they're on a downward spiral, whereas the rest, and they can't participate in that shift to renewables as much as they want to. So we're about taking communities as a whole with us.
Goodness, more power to you. That's amazing. I can see a theme emerging to be illuminated at the symposium. And we'll look forward to delving much into that. It is so needed. So thank you very much, Alison, for your inspiring leadership, your sharing. Thank you.
Thanks, Alice. It's been fun talking with you.
Bye. See you then.
Yep.
Bye.